Hello, trading is closed on May 5th, 2017. Yesterday I made the case for an all-day drop, but I said if we gapped sharply in the undesired direction, the call was killed before the open, and that's what happened. During the day, MEJT gave a buy. It's been satisfied. No new MEJT signals. We get to cross a target off the list. MEJT usually leaves a failed target at a major change in trend. This was the last higher failed target. So I think it's unlikely that the rally ends here. It's also not typical of the market to end a rally on a spike like this. But that doesn't mean we have to go up Monday, and doesn't preclude a drop first. I have mixed indicators. I think it's very likely the market's going to have a gap open and promptly trade outside of the day's range. Let's go over what happens if it gaps up, and let's go over what happens if it gaps down. Well, this is an all-day rally into the close. When it happens on a Friday, it almost always follows through at Monday's open, and that's a positive. It's particularly positive after all the negative action we had all week that there couldn't be any follow-through. Now, if we go higher, it depends on the close, because the stop losses on these DeMark signals depend on the closing price. But if we go higher and keep on going, we'll get a failure of that sequential sell on the daily. If we go higher and keep going, we'll get a failure of the sequential sell on the 65-minute that triggered today. We'll get a failure of the sequential sell on the 78-minute that triggered today. And even though we will trigger bar number 13 of a combo sell on the weekly chart, I won't believe it, because when the DeMark signals fail on other time frames, I don't believe it on this time frame either. And when these things fail, they tend to fail in grand style. Of course, if we go higher and then aren't able to hold the gains, then we have a weekly DeMark sell signal too. Well, that's the good side of it. There's a high chance we keep going up. What if we drop? Is there any hope of that happening? Well, first of all, we have a wall into the close. That's usually followed by a gap down. Now remember, if this happens, the gap typically fills and we go over this high, and it usually fills quickly, but it doesn't have to fill quickly. We also have a Hobson close right at the high of the day, and that tends to gap down. I've been hoping that this count was correct. We still haven't invalidated it yet, but we've come pretty close. I've been saying there are many different ways to count this. I've tried revising it. I'm keeping blue A where it was, making this blue B, that's a change, and hoping we're in blue C, which is an expanded flat. And that just might be a bridge too far. It doesn't break any rules, but it might be stretching it. Let's look over how this revises things. Some of the relationships are the same. Here's the same A. Here's the new B. We have purple ABC with a Fibonacci relationship between C and A. And all we have to do is see if this fits the pattern for an irregular or expanded flat. We have to see if this makes good sense from a Fibonacci perspective since late April. So let's start from here. This black A will keep the same. If that's black A, we have to count this as a brown A, B, C. If that's the count, and that's brown C, you'll see there's a Fibonacci relationship between brown C and brown A. If this is brown C, which is an ABC, there's the same Fibonacci relationship between red A and red C. And in red C, if that's gold ABC, there's a Fibonacci relationship there also. So at least it's possible. We have good Fibonacci resistance here. We have a Hobson close. We have a wall into the close. If my count's going to work, this whole thing should be rejected by gapping down sharply Monday and promptly undercutting these lows. If that happens, the count I have is still correct, and we're still in gray C, and it could be a pretty big drop, even though we're going to retest this area later on. If we keep going up in reverse, we still have a possible top, but if we keep going up and invalidate the stop loss on this, all these DeMark signals are going to fail, and they typically fail in grand style. So I think we're going to get important information at the open and important information at the close. Look for a gap outside the day's range, and that's today's call.